Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Cramer. Today we are talking about energy, one of my very favorite topics. We have our expert feng shui designer, Krystal Holm, and I want to welcome you to the show, Krystal. And now let's talk about what you do, because I'm sure a lot of people have heard of feng shui. Some may have dabbled with it a little bit. Enlighten us. So what is it that you do?
Well, I'm a feng shui designer and I'm a clutter expert. And so what I really do is I teach soul-driven leaders, really, how to use feng shui the right way to create peace and prosperity in their lives, in their space. We really design their space to align them with their vision, so that they can manifest the life they want into existence.
So I brought up energy because this is really what we're talking about, which is a fundamental, we're talking about universal laws and principles here. And a lot of people just kind of get into this whole quagmire about, that's just woo-woo, or, but we're talking about really solid principles because everyone can feel their energy get pulled out of alignment when they're in a really dysfunctional space, whether they're around dysfunctional people, whether there's a lot of negativity emotionally, or, let's face it, if you walk into an office where somebody's, they're hoarders and it's just pure chaos, it doesn't feel good. You're not going to be as productive. But now you go into it at a whole nother level. So can you talk a little bit about what is the importance of having your space support you?
Oh, wow. It is so important. It is probably the most important thing you can do as a business owner, really. Your space is really an extension, right, of your energetic frequency. And so it reflects what's going on internally for you, right? It's our natural instinct to live in our space, right? And to let our stuff sort of fall out as it is, right? It's our safe space. This is where we go and where we're allowed to be ourselves. So yeah, when the space, we have a huge influence on the energy of the space. So when it's in that state of chaos and out of alignment, yes, we can significantly feel it, and it has a huge impact on our health, the state of our sort of life world, right? The relationships, our business, our everything. Yeah, it's a huge thing.
You predominantly work with professional women. And I'm sure you've then seen a lot of kind of before and after scenarios. So when somebody comes into your world, what are you oftentimes seeing?
Usually what I see is lots of clutter. And lots of clutter can look like all sorts of things, right? It can be one piece of clutter that's just huge emotionally, not necessarily huge in a physical thing, but there's clutter there. That's always the start, where people are stuck, right? They're stuck in the clutter. So usually it's even the hoarder thing that you kind of mentioned. A lot of my clients have either downsized houses or, moved, or for whatever reason, their stuff is overflowing their space. And usually they're stuck in whatever it is that they're trying to do, right? I work specifically, for the longest time, it was mostly just entrepreneurs. And so they would be always at a stage in their business where it was just like stuck and not really moving. And the same is true. This pandemic has really increased my client base, because there's so many more people working from home, and so they have their office space there. And the same thing is true there. They're stuck in their job, like where their growth, they're like everything in life is just sort of mired, right? It's that quicksand, and so usually that's what I see a lot of, that just stuckness.
Interesting that you say that, because like for me, if I'm feeling like I'm getting stuck in a rut, I will, and this is a habit that I've developed over time. I know it's time to clean. I know it's time to purge. It's like I have to change the energy to start to get the energy flowing again. And sometimes it's just as simple as like going through that stack of papers. I've got one right now, where it's like, okay, it's time to go through. It's time to clean the energy, to purge, to hit the vibrational reset button, so to speak. But I know sometimes it's not just stuff that you've accumulated. Sometimes you need to kind of just freshen up your space. Maybe your art or your books or whatever is in your environment is not nurturing you. It's not supporting your growth. So do you find that sometimes the work that you do with your clients involves tweaking their space in those ways?
For sure. A lot of the people that come to me, designing your space is not some sort of innate talent that we all have. Like, I don't know what it is about the world that expects women to be able to be natural mothers, chefs, and designers. Like, it's this thing that they expect of us, but it's not. It is not a gift that we all have. Some of us have other gifts and our purpose is meant for other things. So most of the women that come from me don't really have this natural skill or talent at being able to bring that vision to life. So what they vision in their head is not what their space ends up looking like. So they're never in love with it, and more often than not, even working with a designer oftentimes is funny, because people want to design for who they are right now. And the fact is, design is an ever evolving thing, just like we are ever evolving people. If you design for who you are right now, that's a stagnant space, right? The energy there is stagnant and you're going to stay stuck who you are right now. If you actually start designing for the person that you're becoming, it allows the energy to shift into that arena, so that it gives you space to actually become that person. So there is a lot of makeover, not just even tweaking. Sometimes it's a tweak, sometimes it's it's not to say you have to buy all new stuff. Sometimes it's just you move and you want to naturally put the same painting in your living room every time because that's where it was, but it doesn't have to be. Like, just that movement of rearranging things in your home will shake up the energy, and just being able to reflect that. Although it's still for who you are now. It's just a choice of who are you designing for.
I love that. I love that you are saying that. One of the things that I've believed for a long time, and I've taught many of my clients, I work on mindset, and mindset is, it really is not just the inner game. It does become our outer reality, but our environment does influence our inner state. So it's there, it's not there. It's not separate. It right. all. And when we are creating our work environment, it needs to match the vibration of who we are becoming, who we are aspiring to be. I remember when I was a general hypnotherapist, I would oftentimes say, you've got to create those external triggers for yourself. So if you don't like exercising, you've got to start to create an environment that supports, hey, I love this. I feel great. Put on tennis shoes, right? It's that affects your mindset, and that makes you more productive. So as business people, and I think it's so fun because a lot of business people, they know, I've got my stack of, 10 grand, where I'm looking at it all the time. I'm seeing it because that is affecting my mindset. That's affecting my energy. And that makes me more aligned with who I am becoming, who I'm aspiring to be. If you want to aspire to be more successful, you've got to create a space that really helps to get you to that level.
I call it turning your space into a 3D vision board, because you are absolutely correct about the mindset piece. Your space, I said earlier, your space is an extension of your energetic field. And it really does reflect who you are, right? We sometimes do it on purpose. We choose decorations because what we want it to reflect, or what we think it says about us, but it actually says so much more. It's literally reflecting what's going on inside. So when you are doing all of that, changing it around, yeah, it totally is. It totally is. It is. You can make it. You can make it reflect to you that thing, that who you want to be. Like you say, it creates space for you to become that person, right? That's the whole purpose of feng shui. That's literally how it works and what it does, because it is a reflection. So if you it's like hanging your mirror up, right? This is what I want it to reflect. And so as long as it's reflecting that, then it's totally how the whole thing works, right? It's the secret. It's the law of attraction. It's how the whole thing works.
Yeah. It all based on laws and universal principles. And, when somebody comes into my world, that is a foundation that we start with. Is you've got to understand, we're not talking about some trendy technique. We're talking about how the universe works. And just because you don't understand the law of gravity does not mean that it ceases to operate exactly the way it is supposed to. Right. And this is such a valuable conversation, because I think a lot of people, they don't even stop and think about what type of influence their environment is having on them. Do you feel productive? Do you feel inspired? Do you feel nurtured in your environment? Is it helping you to create what you want? And so now we're talking with you, and you're an expert in this, and this is what you help. Now, let me just ask, because I know you work predominantly with women entrepreneurs, but if there is a man that is watching this and he says, I need to change my space, are you going to turn him away?
No, I mean, I do have men that come and work with me. I think it doesn't seem to be as important to them. I think for men, what I see more often than not is when they want to hire a designer, it's when they reach a certain level, right? For them, it's a status sort of symbol, right? It doesn't matter what their office space looks like until they are in that executive chair. Whereas for women, it matters more at a much, much earlier stage. The space that we're in, we really feel empowered or drained. Like we connect so much more just with the space that we're in. And I think it's just like at a hormonal level, like we are as a gatherer mind, the way our brain is chemically designed to work, we have that awareness. And so it makes us relate to our space on a just chemically different level. And so I think that's just why it feels so much more important to women. And men, it's more of that status symbol, like, oh, okay, now I'm a CEO. Now I'm going to hire somebody to do this for me, because it's just a different perspective.
Well, there is sort of this understanding that women do tend to be more empathic. So we do tend to be a little bit naturally more inclined to feeling the subtle energies. Although I have to say that in my many years of working with clients, and a lot of my clients are men, that many of them are also the ones that come into my world anyway. They tend to be more empathic. So they still have the macho, masculine exterior and drive. And in many cases, there are some mindset differences between men and women business owners. But I can definitely see how, in many cases, their environments are influencing them as well. They just maybe are not quite as inclined to say, like you said, right? Because it's a mental thing. They're not as inclined to say, hey, I need to do something to improve my space, to change my environment. But I would definitely say that I have some clients that could probably use your help.
And we're really less influenced by our space than we are an influence on our space, right? It's our space has an energetic frequency, and when we're out of alignment with that, that's a thing, right? And that's what feng shui is really designed to fix, and we go in and fix the remedies with that. But all of the other stuff is us influencing our space. It's us, you know, our influence on that energy of it. So it's a huge but yeah, I think men with their single focus, they don't notice it until they pick their head up. And when they pick their head up is usually when they're on the top, right? Like, oh, okay, I'm done with the working now I can celebrate. And that's where this part comes in. So
now,
yeah, I think so.
When you are saying that we are an influence on our space, now the way that I interpret that is based on my understanding, which is the reason that we have the clutter is because that's inside. Right? That is inside of us. And now we are creating that in our environment.
For sure.
So is that where you're coming from as well?
Absolutely. Yes. It's when you think about your space when you moved in, it was just an empty box. So the energy was sitting in there or flowing in there or doing its thing. It was just an empty box. Everything about the space and the life that we give to it is our energy. So the clutter is our clutter, and clutter is a direct reflection of mindset. If it's clutter, typically what I find with my clients is it's either one of three types of clutter, right? Scarcity, obligation, and worthiness clutter. But everything else is, even if it's not clutter, it's still a reflection of what we believe, what we think, how we see ourselves, how we want the world to see us. It's all of that, right? Yeah, all of that is our influence, not our space's influence on us. It's our influence on the space and what we bring to the table.
Right. It's such an interesting topic because so many people are conditioned to think that it is the external circumstances that determine how they feel, when in reality, we are essentially projecting ourselves out into our world, and then that is feeding back to us. And even the things that trigger us are showing us stuff within ourselves. So to get people to start to understand that it's interrelated, but really it always starts within. It's kind of like when you set a goal for yourself, you have to align with that goal mentally and emotionally in order for that to become an actualized reality for you. And it's the inner stuff first.
Yes.
It's the inner stuff first.
Right. That's why my framework is mind, body, soul, home, because you have to start there. And it all relates to to clutter and all of the things that we own, because that we were the one that bought them. That's in yeah, it's funny how that works, right? In the beginning, like when we're little, it's environmental factors that teach us. And then as we grow, it's now we reflect those beliefs back out onto everything around us, right?
Yep. So let's talk a little bit about your own mindset journey as a business owner. So I think it's safe to assume that you've learned and grown a lot because of your understanding of these principles, but as a business owner. So what are some of the takeaways that you've the wisdom that you've acquired up to this point in your own mindset and what it takes for you to get to where you want to be?
We all have so much stuff in here that it has to be faced, right? It has to be healed. All of those things that keep us stuck and keep us from really realizing the dream and the vision and all of those things that we want. All of that starts inside too. And so until we declutter that, right? Until we pull it out, unpack it, look at it, declutter it, we're really never gonna achieve it, right? It's always gonna be there. Even no matter how far you get, how successful you are, there's still that next layer and that next layer, right? It's all got to be pulled out and cleaned up, right?
Yeah. I've frequently jokingly said, but it's so incredibly true, that no matter how much success you have, no matter how much money you have acquired or accumulated, it does not give you a free pass to just dump all of your stuff. You've got to do the inner work. And, there's a lot of truth in that. You've got to look at what is there. You've got to see what it is that you're afraid of. Most people try to avoid those things. People try to outwork their fears, their doubts, their insecurities, their past limiting beliefs. And guess what, friends? That is not a very effective strategy, because you may be able to create the exterior appearance of success by acquiring things, whether that's money or status or whatever it may be. But you still have to live with yourself 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you got to deal with those things. You got to let that stuff go to really, truly have a level of personal fulfillment and satisfaction and joy and passion in life.
And yeah, that's what I see always too, right? There's always we hide it. We hide our stuff, right? Hide it in the closet, hide it in the basement, hide it, right?
Yeah.
In every corner and nook and cranny.
I've just moved it over to that other spot that I don't look at very often, but it's still there and it's not going away by itself.
Right. It won't go away by itself. We have to actually do the work. So yeah, that's right where we start.
So where can our listeners get in contact with you? Because I know that there are going to be people who are like, oh shit, my space definitely needs an overhaul and I am in growth mode and I'm ready to up level. Let's do this. So how do they find you?
For those people that are really ready to jump in and up level, I would say they can apply to work with me at peaceandprosperityalignment.com. That's the best place to start. And for those people that are more like maybe not there, they want to get started on their own. They still have a lot of shame around their clutter and they're not quite ready to say, here's all my stuff. And they just want to get started on their own. They can start with decluttering. I do have my own system for how to declutter. You can pick that up at declutteryourmindset.com. And it's my own 5-step method to face your scarcity, worthiness, and obligation clutter and really get you started. And other than that, I'm on social media and the internet, just like everybody else. Yeah, you can find me on Facebook or on Instagram.
Awesome. This has been a very enlightening conversation, and hopefully we were able to maybe get into a few new minds the value of doing this type of work, because it's not just about having a prettier space. It is very symbolic to
It's doing the inner work on the outside. It is you're doing it from the outside in. It really is the easier way to go. To be honest, it's so much easier to start from the outside and work your way in.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those things where it's just kind of fundamental, just like you've got to have certain tools in your environment to be successful. I mean, it's pretty hard to work without a desk for most people. So
right.
It's kind of just the fundamentals. Like the work that I do with people is very much like going to a specialist. So when you've got stuff and you're hitting that wall, you want somebody who can come in there and they can get the job done. Right. And you're a specialist in the work that you do, just that you're doing it from the exterior to make those interior shifts, and I'm just getting in their heads and doing it that way.
I do a bit of that too, but mostly because their clutter tells me so much, and I get to be a translator until they can learn how to understand the language of their clutter themselves. It's my whole job. Let me teach you how to listen to what your clutter is telling you so that you can go off and do that work by yourself.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, this has been fantastic. Absolutely loved it. And I want to thank you so much, Krystal, for spending your time with us and enlightening us. And I look forward to doing more collaborating with you in the future. And for our guests, of course, I want to thank you as well. I really hope that you took away a few nuggets from this for sure. So with that, we'll wrap it up. Was there any final parting thoughts that you had for us, Krystal?
Thank you so much for having me here. And treat your home like your best friend. It will change the world.
Love it. Awesome. So perfect way to end this episode. Thank you again, everyone. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you again in the next episode.